we finally reached probably one of the most important moments in heavy metal history. Now, you guys might not agree, but as far as from a commercial standpoint, a viability standpoint, and really in the career of this band, everything was about to be turned upside down once again. Now, with Injustice for All, we talked about how the death of Cliff Burton really affected the band. And now we're going to talk about another replacement that occurred that really seemed to, well, bode well for the band. Flaming Rasmussen had produced the last 3 albums that the band had made, and now there was a new boy in town. Now there was a new producer that was going to handle the Metallica workload. A man by the name of Bob Rock, a gentleman who took a couple of bands in the 1980s straight to #1, produced albums for the likes of Motley Crue and The Cult, called Sonic Temple, which is an album that I reviewed, and now was handling Metallica's most ambitious project, at least to the time, which is the Black Album. Of course, it's actually just known as Metallica, their self-titled eponymous album. However, this is an album that has got the reputation of being called the Black Album because of its infamous black cover. You can see the rattlesnake in the bottom right-hand corner and the Metallica logo very faintly if you look at it very, very, very hard, if you strain your eyes a little bit. However, this is a cover that is infamous. This is a cover that everybody recognizes. This is a cover that's recognized even by individuals who aren't heavy metal fans, who aren't metalheads whatsoever. That's the reason why this is probably the one metal album, the one metal review that will probably usher in people from all different blocks of musical life. Because Metallica's Black Album is known essentially by every walking, breathing music fan, even those who listen to things that are completely opposite. What made this such a commercial success? Why are we now talking about an album that has sold 16 million copies in the United States alone and has globally sold more than 30 million records, making it one of the best-selling albums in history? And furthermore, why are we doing so with a storm raging outside? I call that atmosphere, and I call the Black Album just damn good timing. Metallica was changing up their sound just a little bit with this record. On the previous 4 albums, their thrash metal was all about speed, variety, and just a whole lot of tasty flavor. With this album, it was a little bit different. This was all about pacing. This was all about a little bit of experimentation. It was all about the band collaborating alongside their new producer, Bob Rock, in order to really craft something that was a little bit more unique to their catalog. For all the days in which they had been thrashing their necks off, they were now taking time to perhaps pace things a little bit differently, perhaps pace things a little bit more slowly, perhaps build some songwriting that had a lot of character as opposed to a lot of speed. Black Album was the result, and of course we all know one of the main catalysts to this, the singles off of the album. This is an album that is chock full of singles. Consider some of the names: Enter Sandman, Sad But True, The Unforgiven. Consider some of the other songs off of this album: The God That Failed, Wherever I May Roam, just to name a few. This album was a true exhibit to what pacing and just kind of easing off the accelerator a little bit can really do for a band. Because just by tuning down that pace just a little bit, it opened up a wide door of accessibility. Now, for some people, they consider that a sellout move, but really, do you really sell out? Do you think Metallica went into the studio knowing that the Black Album would sell as many copies as it did based around this simple stylistic maneuver? They didn't. So, for anybody that calls it a sellout move, just stop. You're not proving anything to anybody. The song Enter Sandman went on to become one of the biggest and most well-known Metallica songs of all time. In fact, it's probably the one that people think of almost instantaneously whenever you mention the band themselves. And by individuals, I don't necessarily mean all individuals. I mean, of course, more in the way of casual metal fans as opposed to those who really make this kind of a lifestyle. Those who make metal into a lifestyle will, of course, list a laundry list of songs that probably aim to avoid the Black Album a little bit, or it's not necessarily the songs that they include first in their long catalog of names. However, it is something where you cannot avoid speaking about how Enter Sandman, its simplistic power, really propelled this album into the faces of everybody. And the music video that accompanied it, that was shown on heavy rotation on MTV, VH1, and everything like that, only increased the amount of individuals that were able to be exposed to this band, this Metallica band. A band that was very well known throughout heavy metal circles already was now getting well known to the rest of the world. A band that was already selling exceptionally well was only selling even better, and actually something even bigger was about to happen, and that was the fact that this band was going to go to #1. And they were going to stay at #1 on the RIAA Billboard Top 200 charts for 4 consecutive weeks. It was going to be only a matter of a couple of weeks before this album went platinum. And the platinum plaques just kept on coming for this record. Widespread acclaim was coming for this record. And as each subsequent single was released, a different side of Metallica was really being exposed to the population. And now, thanks to the introduction to the band of Enter Sandman to a lot of individuals, they were starting to see that this was a very diverse group. Something that perhaps may not have been as apparent to them had they listened to the first 4 albums. Even though, as metal fans, we know that there was creativity there. It just wasn't something that was as noticeable, perhaps, to those who are non-metal elitists. I hate using that word, but it's the only word that I could think of to really describe us. Consider a song such as Sad But True. Consider how, Enter Sandman is a thrash number that really is kind of dialed back, and then you get into Sad But True, and it's just the heavy, heavy riffs. There are riffs that are heavy enough to be, truly heavy metal riffs, but at the same time have the sensibility of a hard rock song. Consider a song such as The Unforgiven that really just strips everything down, is able to make a metal song into basically a metal ballad. Consider a song such as Nothing Else Matters, which truly is a ballad. Consider the simplicity of the lyrics that James Hetfield wrote for that song, and it really just all comes full circle. Consider the different topics that are mentioned on this album whenever you get into the deeper gallows of it. My Friend in Misery, talking about depression. The God That Failed, talking about religion. You're getting into a lot of different things. And then you even get into a little bit of patriotism, either that or perhaps a little bit of commentary that was anti-patriot with Don't Tread on Me. Don't Tread on Me, of course, was the famous motto of the Confederacy. So you have a lot of different little ideas that are sprouted on this album that make each individual track its own entity, which makes each of these individual entities its own monster, and which makes the collective monster that you get on this album, the full 12-headed beast that you get with the Black Album, something truly special. Now, many people may argue that this isn't their best work, and many people are probably right, but that's personal opinion. Whenever you really push that aside and contemplate this on many things aside from just personal opinion, cultural impact, sales, what it really did for Metallica as a band, this definitely is the one that really is going to be #1 on the lists. This is something that brought viability, it brought the name Metallica to the public. It's something that caused their shows, which were already attracting, tens of thousands of people, able to elevate those crowds up to hundreds of thousands of people, and in some places, reportedly, over 1 million individuals. Now, the tour that happened afterwards spawned something different. It spawned this. This is actually the Mexico City show off of the Live Shit Binge and Purge CD, DVD set, whereas whenever it was released, it was a cassette/VHS set. Now, these are rambunctious shows that are taking place in Mexico City and Seattle, reportedly among, 500,000 fans in attendance. And at some locations, Metallica almost resembled a jam band with the way in which they were able to extend songs. There's solos that occur between Kurt and James and Jason Newsted, the bassist, that really just extend to close to 20 minutes in length. And Seek and Destroy, remember whenever we talked about Kill 'Em All, how I said that Seek and Destroy has that call and response aspect to it that was really going to become a huge impact? There you have it. That is the proof. On that disc right there, disc #2, where Seek and Destroy is performed, is extended to nearly 19 minutes in length, with James addressing the rowdy crowd, basically inciting them on to reply to him saying searching, and to have them respond to him, seek and destroy. And the real interaction between James and the crowd, the real interaction between the band and the crowd, really showcased a band that just truly was on top of their game and had overcome a lot of obstacles to get there. They were a band that decided to push forward after the death of Cliff Burton and release And Justice for All. They undertook a new producer in Bob Rock and produced the Black Album, and it immediately paid dividends. It immediately gave them something to really be proud of. It gave them something of historical significance. Now, even though metal at the time of the early 1990s was starting to kind of decline out of the public eye, even though metal seemed to be really in a dark hole, Metallica and the release of the Black Album was a significant moment, considering it was going to inspire future generations. It was going to inspire full movements. If any band that really came out in the latter part of the 1990s with new metal, or even whenever you consider the first part of the 2000s with metalcore, didn't claim that Metallica's The Black Album didn't have some sort of impact on them, they're probably lying. It's probably just something that's so typical that you don't really want to say it, but this was definitely an album that has far-reaching impact, and definitely one where you can hear the influence in a lot of different bands. Consider Trivium today. Now, unfortunately, throughout this tour, it was a very, very long tour, it lasted years, there was another near tragedy that befell the band. There was a pyrotechnical accident that involved James Hetfield, and he was very, very severely burnt. During this time frame, once again, the band was faced with the idea of, should we continue onward or not? Because of this, it took a long period of time for the follow-up to begin, to the Black Album to begin its writing process. And the writing process that would commence would be massive. It would be enough where we wouldn't be talking about just one album, but instead, we'll be talking about two. Of course, we'll be talking about them one at a time, but you get my feeling, nation. We know those albums well. Some of us like to berate those albums well. But that's up next. But for tonight, for this moment, the moment in which you are watching this video, recall the Black Album. Re-listen. Re-immerse yourself in perhaps your first feelings, your first ambitions towards the album whenever you listen to it for the very first time. Remember the significance. And just enjoy banging your head to the most sold album during the SoundScan era. Since 1991, the album that has sold the most albums is the Black Album. Take that, conventional music. Take